I told you to sit down and be quiet!
I'm sorry, sir.
Sorry isn't good enough. You know the rules!
Yes, sir.
They say you never forget the people who do you bad when you were powerless. They're right. 20 years ago, Gerald Hartman made my life hell for 8 minutes every morning and 8 minutes every afternoon. 8 minutes that felt like hours. 8 minutes where I learned exactly what cruelty looked like when it wore a uniform and held authority over a terrified 10-year-old. Today, I signed the acquisition papers for Metro City Transportation. 42 school buses, 73 employees, $12 million in annual revenue. And Gerald Hartman, the man who tormented me, who made me dread every school day, who convinced me I was worthless, still drives Bus 47, still wears that same smug expression, still has no idea that the worthless black kid he tortured for 2 years just became his boss. Let me take you back to 2004, back to when I was 10 years old and completely powerless, back to when Gerald Hartman taught me that some people are cruel simply because they can be. My name is Darius Webb, and I grew up in the Riverside Projects on the east side of Metro City. My mom worked 2 jobs, day shift at the hospital, night shift cleaning office buildings. My dad had left when I was 6. It was just us, struggling but surviving. I was a good kid, quiet, kept my head down, did my homework, stayed out of trouble. But every morning at 7:15 a.m., I had to get on Bus 47. And every morning, my stomach would twist with dread because I knew what was waiting for me. Gerald Hartman. He was a white man in his mid-40s, with thinning brown hair, a perpetual scowl, and eyes that seemed to look for reasons to make children miserable. He'd been driving school buses for 15 years and had perfected the art of tormenting kids who couldn't fight back. Most drivers were kind, patient. They understood that children were children, sometimes loud, sometimes messy, but fundamentally innocent. Not Gerald Hartman. From the very first day of 4th grade, he singled me out. "Move faster, boy," he'd bark as I climbed the bus steps, my backpack heavy with library books. "You're holding up the whole bus with your slowness. What's wrong with you?" I was 10. I moved as fast as my legs could carry me. "Sorry, Mr. Hartman," I'd whisper. "Sorry doesn't cut it. Sit in the back. All the way back, and don't you dare make a sound." The back of the bus, in the summer, was sweltering. In the winter, the heat didn't reach it. The back was where the problem kids sat, the ones being punished. But I hadn't done anything wrong. I just existed in a way that Gerald Hartman found offensive. Over the next 2 years, the torture escalated. He'd drive over speed bumps deliberately fast when I was standing, sending me crashing into seats while he laughed. "Learn to balance. Boy, what are you, stupid?" He'd forget to stop at my corner, driving right past while I frantically rang the bell, forcing me to walk an extra mile home. "Maybe this'll teach you to pay attention." He'd make me sit on the floor if the bus was too full, even when there were empty seats, because I was taking up space other kids needed. When other students bullied me, calling me names or stealing my lunch, Gerald would watch in the rearview mirror and smake. "Handle your own problems. I'm not your babysitter." But when I tried to defend myself, his voice would boom through the bus. "Darius Webb, I saw that. You're written up. One more incident, and you're banned from this bus permanently." The worst part? My mom couldn't drive me to school. She left for work at 6 a.m. I lived too far to walk. If I got banned from the bus, I couldn't attend school. Gerald Hartman knew this. He weaponized it. "One more complaint from me, and you're done," he'd hiss as I got off the bus. "Your mama can't help you, so you better behave. Boy, you hear me?" I'd nod, tears burning in my eyes, hating myself for being powerless, for being scared, for letting this man make me feel so small. The breaking point came in December of my 5th grade year. It was 3 days before winter break. I'd been working for weeks on a science project, a model of the solar system made from styrofoam bowls, paint, and wire. It wasn't fancy, but I poured my heart into it. My teacher, Mrs. Chen, had praised it, said it showed real creativity and effort. I was so proud. I carried it carefully onto Bus 47 that morning, cradling it like precious cargo. Gerald's eyes found it immediately in the rearview mirror. "What's that?" His voice was sharp. "My science project, Mr. Hartman." I have to turn it in today. Did I say you could bring that on my bus? My stomach dropped. I didn't know I needed permission. Other kids bring projects. Other kids aren't you. He pulled the bus to the curb, even though we were 3 blocks from school, threw it in park, stood up and walked down the aisle toward me. The entire bus went silent. 30 kids watching. Gerald grabbed my project. Just grabbed it, his thick fingers crushing one of the painted planets. Please. I reached for it. He held it over my head. You think you're special? Think you can break my rules because you made some little craft project? Mr. Hartman, I need that for school. Please. He looked at it, looked at me, and something cruel flickered across his face. Then he threw it on the floor and stomped on it. The styrofoam cracked, paint splattered, wire bent. 2 weeks of work destroyed in seconds. The bus gasped. A few kids looked horrified. Most just stared. Clean that up, Gerald said flatly. You're not leaving trash on my bus. I knelt down, gathering pieces of crushed planets, my hands shaking, tears streaming down my face. Nobody helped. Nobody said a word. When I got to school, I went straight to the bathroom and sobbed. Mrs. Chen found me there 30 minutes later. I told her everything. About the project. About Gerald. About 2 years of constant torment. She looked horrified. Darius, why didn't you tell someone sooner? Because he said if I complained, he'd get me banned from the bus. And Mom can't drive me. I'd have to miss school. Mrs. Chen hugged me. We're going to fix this. I promise. She marched straight to the principal's office. Principal Morrison listened to Mrs. Chen's complaint, called me in, asked me questions. Then he called Gerald Hartman. Gerald sat in that office, his face the picture of wounded innocence. Principal Morrison, I don't know what this boy has told you, but is making things up. He's a troubled kid. Single mother. No father figure. He acts out for attention. He's not acting out, Mrs. Chen interjected. He's one of my best students. Polite. Hard-working. I've never seen him cause a single problem. With all due respect, you don't see what happens on my bus. The lies, the stealing, the disrespect. Gerald looked at the principal with practiced sincerity. I've been doing this job for 15 years. Never had a single complaint. But this particular student seems determined to cause problems. Principal Morrison looked at me, at Gerald, at the power dynamic playing out in his office. Mr. Hartman, I'm sure you understand that we take all complaints seriously. But I also understand that bus drivers have to maintain discipline. It's a challenging job. My heart sank. However, Morrison continued, I'd like to review the bus security footage from this morning, just to be thorough. Gerald's face twitched. The camera on bus 47 has been broken for months. Maintenance hasn't fixed it yet. Of course it was. Morrison sighed. Well, without evidence, this becomes a he-said situation, and I have to rely on the word of a 15-year veteran driver with an exemplary record. What about my project? My voice was small. He destroyed it in front of everyone. I responded to a student bringing in an authorized item onto my bus, Gerald said smoothly. It violated safety regulations. I asked him to remove it. When he refused, I had to confiscate it. If it got damaged in the process, that's unfortunate. The principal looked at me with something like pity. Darius, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Mr. Hartman was following protocol. I'm sorry about your project, but rules are rules. He stomped on it. He called me boy-like. That's enough. Morrison's tone shifted. Mr. Hartman has explained the situation. The matter is closed. Now get to class. Mrs. Chen looked devastated, but there was nothing she could do. Gerald Hartman walked out of that office victorious. As I passed him in the hallway, he leaned down and whispered so only I could hear. You tried to get me in trouble. Boy, big mistake. Now you're really going to regret it. For the next 6 months, riding bus 47 was a daily nightmare. Gerald forgot my stop constantly, making me walk miles home in rain, snow, heat. He wrote me up for infractions I didn't commit, talking when I was silent, standing when I was seated. He made me sit on the floor for safety reasons, even when the bus was half empty. And there was nothing I could do. No one who would believe me. No evidence. No power. Just a 10-year-old black kid being systematically tortured by an adult with authority and complete impunity. I survived by making myself a promise. A vow that I whispered to myself every time Gerald made me feel worthless. One day, I'll be in charge. One day, people like him won't be able to hurt people like me. One day, I'll have the power to make things right. I held on to that promise like a lifeline. 6th grade, I switched schools. Different district. Different bus. Different life. I never saw Gerald Hartman again. But I never forgot him. 20 years later, I'm 30 years old. I graduated from State University with a degree in business administration. Started working in transportation logistics. Worked my way up from dispatcher to route manager to operations director. I was good at it. Really good. I understood systems. Efficiency. But more than that, I understood people. I understood what it meant to be powerless in a system designed to protect those with authority. 3 years ago, I started my own company, Web Transportation Solutions. We consulted for school districts, helped them optimize routes, reduce costs, improve safety. And we grew. Fast. Last year, Metro City Transportation, the company that operated school buses for my old district, ran into financial trouble. Mismanagement, rising costs, aging fleet. They were hemorrhaging money. Their board of directors put the company up for sale, and I made an offer they couldn't refuse. $12 million. Full acquisition. I'd keep all employees, honor all contracts, invest in new buses and equipment. They accepted. Yesterday, I signed the papers. Today was my first day as the official owner. And today, I was going to meet with every employee personally, including the drivers, including Gerald Hartman. I arrived at the Metro City Transportation Depot at 6 a.m. The sun was just rising, casting long shadows across the rows of yellow buses parked in neat lines. Inside the main building, 73 employees gathered in the break room for the mandatory all-staff meeting. Drivers, mechanics, dispatchers, administrative staff. They were nervous. New ownership always made people nervous. Would there be layoffs? Policy changes? Would the new boss be reasonable or tyrannical? I stood at the front of the room in a sharp navy suit and burgundy tie, looking every bit the successful businessman I'd become. "Good morning," I said, my voice calm and authoritative. "My name is Darius Webb. As of yesterday, I'm the owner of Metro City Transportation. I want to thank you all for your work over the years. This company has a long history of serving our community, and I'm committed to continuing that tradition." Relieved murmurs rippled through the room. However, I continued, I also believe in accountability, in treating people, especially children, with dignity and respect, in ensuring that the power we hold as adults who transport vulnerable kids is never abused. The mood shifted. Some employees shifted uncomfortably. Over the next week, I'll be conducting individual performance reviews with each of you. We'll discuss your history with the company, any concerns you have, and where you see yourself going forward. I looked directly at the driver's section. My eyes found him. Gerald Hartman looked older, late 60s now, grayer, more weathered, but it was unmistakably him. Same scowl, same cruel eyes. He stared back at me with no recognition whatsoever. Just another black executive in a suit. Nobody important. Nobody he needed to worry about. "I look forward to meeting with all of you," I said. "Let's make this a great year." Dismissed. 3 days later, Gerald Hartman's name appeared on my calendar. 2 p.m. Performance review. My assistant knocked on my office door. "Mr. Webb, Gerald Hartman is here for his meeting." "Send him in." Gerald entered, looking annoyed at having been summoned. He probably saw this as a waste of time. A formality. "Mr. Webb." He didn't extend his hand. "I've been driving for this company for 30 years. Never had a single accident. I don't know what kind of review you think you need to do, but my record speaks for itself." "Sit down, Mr. Hartman." He sat, crossing his arms defensively. I opened a folder on my desk. Inside were documents I'd been gathering for months. Complaints about Gerald from parents and students over the years. Most had been dismissed or buried by previous management. But I dug them up. 27 formal complaints spanning 3 decades. Cruel treatment, verbal abuse, targeting specific students, mostly black and Hispanic kids from poor neighborhoods. A pattern of behavior that had been ignored because he was good at his job, and complaints from those families weren't taken seriously. Do you remember Darius Webb? I asked quietly. Gerald blinked. What? 10 years old. Bus 47. You drove him in 2004 and 2005. Do you remember him? I've driven thousands of kids over the years. I can't remember every. Let me refresh your memory. I pulled out a specific complaint form. December 2004. A student reported that you destroyed his science project, stomped on it in front of the entire bus, called him boy in a demeaning manner, made him clean up the pieces while he cried. Gerald's face went pale. That was handled by the principal. The kid was lying, trying to get attention. The kid, I interrupted, my voice like steel, was me. Silence. Gerald stared at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. 20 years ago, you made my life hell for 8 minutes every morning and 8 minutes every afternoon. You used your authority to torment a child who had no power to fight back. You destroyed my property. You subjected me to constant humiliation. And when I reported you, you lied and got away with it. I leaned forward. Do you know what that taught me, Mr. Hartman? It taught me that some people abuse power simply because they can, because the system protects them and ignores their victims. It taught me that cruelty often goes unpunished when the cruel have authority and the victims have none. Gerald's hands were shaking. I didn't. Kids exaggerate. It was discipline. I was just doing my job. 27 complaints, I said, spreading them across the desk. 27 families over 30 years who said you were cruel to their children. 27 times previous management ignored them because you were a veteran driver and they were just complaining parents. I stood up. I bought this company for a lot of reasons. Good investment, strong market position, opportunity to improve services. But I'll be honest with you, Mr. Hartman. When I found out you still worked here, still drove Bus 47, still had the power to torment children the way you tormented me, that became personal. You can't fire me, Gerald sputtered. I have a union. I have rights. You can't just... You're right. I can't just fire you without cause. But I can implement new policies, new oversight, new accountability measures. I pulled out another document. Effective immediately, all buses will have functioning cameras with audio. Footage will be reviewed monthly by a child welfare specialist. Any complaints will be investigated thoroughly by an independent third party, not brushed aside by administrators who don't want the hassle. Gerald's face went from pale to gray. Additionally, all drivers will undergo mandatory training on trauma-informed care, anti-bias practices, and appropriate discipline. Failure to complete the training means termination. I slid the document across the desk. You have a choice, Mr. Hartman. You can accept these new standards, complete the training, and commit to treating every child with dignity and respect. Or you can resign. Today, with severance and your pension intact. You're trying to force me out, Gerald said, his voice shaking with anger, because of some grudge from 20 years ago. I'm giving you a choice, I corrected, which is more than you gave me when I was 10 years old and powerless. More than you gave the 27 other families who complained about you. More than you gave every child you terrorized because you knew you could get away with it. I sat back down. If you stay, you will be held accountable. Every complaint will be investigated, every interaction recorded. And if I find out you mistreated even one more child the way you mistreated me, you're done. No union protection. No second chances. Done. Gerald stared at the document. His whole body was trembling. I've given 30 years to this company. And for 30 years, you've made vulnerable children miserable. You used your authority as a weapon against kids who couldn't defend themselves. You taught them that adults with power can be cruel without consequences. I looked him dead in the eye. That ends today. This is personal, he said bitterly. You're abusing your power now. No, I said firmly. If this were personal, I'd have fired you immediately, made sure you never worked with children again, made your life as miserable as you made mine. But I'm not you, Mr. Hartman. I don't use power to hurt people. I use it to protect them. I stood. You have 24 hours to decide. Accept the new standards and become the kind of driver children deserve. Or resign and walk away. Those are your options. Gerald Hartman resigned the next day. Sent an email at 6 a.m. Said he was retiring after decades of dedicated service. No admission of wrongdoing. No apology. Just gone. I hired his replacement the following week. A young woman named Maria Rodriguez who'd been working as a substitute driver. She was kind, patient, had glowing recommendations from parents and students. Bus 47 was in good hands now. 6 months after I acquired Metro City Transportation, we held our first annual Driver Excellence Awards. Recognition for drivers who went above and beyond, who made kids feel safe, who understood that 8 minutes on a school bus could shape a child's entire day. Maria Rodriguez won Driver of the Year. As she accepted her award, she gave a short speech. When I was a kid, my bus driver was mean. Made me feel like I didn't matter, like I was a burden. It hurt. But it also taught me, when I grew up, I'd be different. I'd make sure every kid on my bus felt valued, safe, important. The room applauded. After the ceremony, I pulled Maria aside. Thank you for what you do, for understanding that this job is about more than just driving a route. It's about protecting vulnerable kids. She smiled. We all remember the adults who made us feel small. And we all have a choice, become like them, or become what we needed when we were that age. I thought about Gerald Hartman, about the choice he'd made every day for 30 years to be cool when he could have been kind, to abuse power when he could have protected the powerless. And I thought about my choice, to use my success not for petty revenge, but for systemic change, to ensure that no child would experience what I experienced, to create accountability where there had been none. Today, Metro City Transportation has functioning cameras on every bus, independent oversight, regular training, a zero-tolerance policy for mistreating children. We've received dozens of letters from parents thanking us, saying their kids actually look forward to the bus ride now, that drivers remember their names, ask about their days, make them feel valued. That's the real victory. Not that Gerald Hartman is gone, though I won't pretend that doesn't feel like justice. The real victory is that other children won't suffer what I suffered, that the system changed, that power is finally being used to protect instead of harm. I never saw Gerald Hartman again after he resigned. I heard he moved to another state, lives off his pension. Sometimes I wonder if he ever thinks about the kids he hurt, if he ever feels remorse, if he understands the damage he caused. Probably not. People like Gerald rarely do. But it doesn't matter anymore. He doesn't have power over children now. And that's what matters. They say you never forget the people who hurt you when you were powerless. They're right. But they never tell you the rest of the story. The part where you grow up, where you gain your own power, where you have to decide what kind of person you'll be. Gerald Hartman taught me what cruelty looked like, what it felt like to be on the receiving end of someone's abuse of authority. And in teaching me that, he inadvertently taught me something else, something he never intended. He taught me exactly the kind of person I never wanted to become, and the kind of person I'd spend my life fighting against. The worthless black kid he tormented for 2 years didn't just survive. He thrived, built a company, acquired his tormentor's employer, and used that power not for revenge, but for protection. That's the real karma. Not that Gerald Hartman lost his job, but that I gained the power to make sure no other child loses their dignity. Moral lesson. Power reveals character. Some people use authority to hurt those who can't fight back. Others use it to protect the vulnerable. The child you mistreat today might be the person who holds your future in their hands tomorrow. And when that day comes, how you treated them when they were powerless will determine how they treat you when you are. Choose kindness not because of what people can do for you, but because cruelty always, eventually, comes back around.